It's Daf, Bezos Hashem, is Daf Ayin Tes in Masechta Kiddushin. We're going to begin on Ayin Chesam and Beis by the Mishnah. Okay, let's say a guy comes in out of nowhere, out of left field, and you don't know his wife. They moved into the 5 towns. You don't know where they come from, right? A husband and wife. So one of the husbands says, "Benizeh, my son over here is a mamzer." And this wife is not really my wife. Let's say it was my brother's wife. I shouldn't be married to her. So he's tining that this is my son and he's a mamzer. Ein enemen, he's not believed. Now, why wouldn't he believe? So Rashi explains, because if he admits he's the father, then he can't say edus, something testimony against his son. So he won't be believed. Even if the father and mother both say that our child is a mamzer, we're not supposed to get married. If they say not only if on the child that's born, but if they say, if the woman says on the baby that's in her stomach that it is a mamzer, ein nemon, and they're not believed. Rabbi Yehuda says nemonim, they're believed. They are believed. So the Gemara on the beginning, with the father and mother both say our son is a mamzer, Rabbi Yehuda says they're believed. So the Gemara asks the question, why does the Mishnah say that both? Even if both the father and mother both say that our child is a mamzer, we don't believe them. First, the Mishnah says if the father says it's a mamzer, we don't believe the father. And even if the mother chimes in, we won't believe both of them. So why do we have, what's the novelty of that? So the Gemara says, Lo mibaya comment. It really doesn't have to say it. But Lo mibaya ihu, certainly the father, the Lo kimle, he's never sure, he can't be guaranteed that this son is his son at all. Right? So for certainly we don't believe the father. But she knows that this is her boy. This kid came out of her. And so if she would say that my son is a mamzer, we would believe her. So we tell you, we don't believe her. Not only that, not only if they don't believe the parents when the boy is born, and he has a presumptive status that he's a kosher boy. They moved into the 5 towns area, and now the parents are saying that our children is a mamzer, so we won't believe the parents because the child has a chazaka, the kashrus, a presumptive status that he's kosher. Ella, but rather, afilu uber nami, the less like the chazaka, the kashrus, even if the wife is just pregnant, and so the boy, the fetus inside of her, does not have a presumptive status of kosher. We don't know what the baby is. It wasn't born yet. Nevertheless, we don't believe the parents. Rabbi Yehuda says, Nemon, you believe the father when he says that this wife was usher to me. I married my brother's wife, and therefore this child is a mamzer. Why do you believe that? We learned in the Brisa, Yakir, the Torah says that a father could recognize and decide who is his eldest son. He can declare it to other people. From here, Rabbi Yehuda said, a person's believed to say, this is my son who is a Bechar. He's believed to say no matter what about his son. The Torah gives the ne'emonis belief to the father that even if he says something detrimental about his son, that he's a ben grusha or a mamza, then he would be believed. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda because you learn it from Yakir.
Why he doesn't say it?
What?
Why doesn't he say it? What for? He has a reason for something. Maybe he wants to get something for this.
No, maybe it could be, but the Torah gave a ne'emonis to the tata that no matter what he says about his son, even if he says his son was a mamzer, and he's doing tshiva, we would believe him. But Chacham says, you're not believed about your son. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, Rav Yerova Bishlam and Rabbi Yehuda Hainidik Yakir. According to Rav Yehuda, that's why the Torah says Yakir, that the father has a right to announce and make recognition who his son is and tell you all about his son. El Rabban and Yakir Lomeli. Why does the Torah tell the word Yakir that a father could give recognition to his son? According to Rabbanan, we don't believe the father. And says Gemara, sometimes you have to let everybody know that this is your Bechar. So says the Gemara, what's the point of letting everybody know it's your Bechar? We believed even without the Torah. Losses like Pishnayim, so that this kid should get double Pishnayim. Pshita. Lama likra. I don't need a pasuk to tell me that. Why? Because no matter what the father's going to say about his son, and he's going to say, this is the Bechor, we believe him that we give Pishnayim to that kid after he's dead. Why? Because he could, if he wanted to give Pishnayim, he could have done it when he's alive. He could have given it to him as a gift. So the fact that he has a migoy, no matter what he's going to say about which of this particular child that it's his Bechor, we'll believe him. So why did the Torah have to tell you that? So the Gemara says, if he wanted to give his kid a gift, certainly he could give it. Answers the Gemara, but the migoy only works only on the assets that he has right now. But what about the assets that he's going to earn later on? There, the migoy doesn't work. So therefore, that's why you need the Torah to tell you yakir that the father is believed on those items that right now he doesn't have it. So therefore, he doesn't have the migoy, and therefore he's believed because the Torah says the father's believed. Says the Gemara, even according to Rameir, a person can gift something to somebody, even though the item that he's gifting is not yet around. If he says, when I purchased this item, I'm going to gift it to you, according to Rameir, that works, even though you don't have the item yet. So basically, even with a migoy, and the migoy works according to Rameir, because you could always say to this particular child, no matter what assets I'm going to make, whether I have it right now or I have it in the future, I'm gifting it to you, Pishnayim. So since he could always say that, so he has a migoy, he should always be believed, even without the Torah telling me that the father is believed. So Yakir Lomeli answers the Gemara, even Rab Meir holds that if assets fell to the person, to the father, when he's on his deathbed, right? So it wouldn't work if he would have gifted it if he would have said to this kid, whatever I have, you're going to get. It's yours. Because you can't gift something that fell to you when you're a goysis, since at that time that you're on your deathbed and a person is in the intensive care, he can't give gifts to other people. So at that moment, the person himself wouldn't be able to gift it. And therefore, at those items that fell when he's a goysis, there is no migoy. And for that, you need the pasuk to tell you that you would believe the father, that this is his Bechor. That was the whole point of the Mishnah. Next Mishnah, bottom of Ayim Chesam Be'ez. New topic. A father has a daughter, and he gave permission to a shliach to mekabel kedushin for his daughter. And without telling the shliach, he went. There was mekabel kedushin for his daughter for somebody else. The question is, and the shliach also was mekabel kedushin, right? So now two people accepted kedushin on behalf of this young girl. If the father's kabbalah's kedushin came first, kedusha of kedushin, then the kedushin is a good kedushin. But if the shliach came first, kedusha of kedushin, then the shliach's kedushin is a good kedushin. You don't know who came first, who's makabel kedushin, right? At the same, maybe they both were makabel kedushin on the same day. You don't know precisely the time. So the Mishnah tells us, we go to Ayin Testament Aleph, Shneim Noisim Get, the two potential son-in-laws, right? The one that was makabel, that gave the kedusha money to the shliach, and the one that gave the kedusha money to the father, both have to give a get to allow this girl to marry somebody else. The im ratzu, but if they want, so then so im ratzu, if they want, echad noisin get, echad noisin kaides. If they don't have to if they want, one of them can give a get, one of the son-in-laws can give a get, and one has to redo the kedusha. So all same idea. A regular girl, she's 22, and she gives permission to a shliach to makabel kedushin on her behalf. The halcha the kitcha atzma, and she was makabel kedushin by herself, right? So again, if she was makabel kedushin on her own for her own benefit first, kedushin. Then her kedushin is the most valid one. The other one falls away. But if the shliachs came first, then kedusha of kedushin. Then the kedushin is kedushin. Then ain't you doing? If you don't know, shneim nice and get. If you want, one can give the get, and one can be kindness. So the basic idea of this Mishnah is that when a person hires a shliach to do a job for him, right? Let's say the father hired a shliach to do a job, to Makabel Kedushin on behalf of his daughter, and then the father does it himself. Basically, by doing it himself, he is mavatal the shliach. He said the shliach should not be my shliach anymore, and because of that, therefore, the father's kedushin that he accepted is valid, and the shliach's kedushin, which came after the father's kedushin, is invalid. And same idea by a lady who hired somebody to find her a shidduch, and then she gets it herself. She found the shidduch herself. So if she accepted kedushin first, then her shliach becomes batal. So why does the Mishnah have to teach you two stories over here? One with the father hiring a shliach to be mekabel kedushin for his daughter, and one when the woman is hiring a shliach to mekabel kedushin for herself. Utzrich, I need both of them. The Yashmin Gabi Didei, if it would just tell me by the father hiring a shliach. Mishum the Gavra Kimle b'Yuchson. A man understands Yuchson. He knows what's good for his daughter, and therefore, when he's Makabel Kedushin, he certainly was Mavatal the Shliach. It's a lady, a 22-year-old girl, who hired a Shliach to be Makabel Kedushin. The like Kimle b'Yuchson. She doesn't really know what's best for her. She doesn't know yichus and family. Ema, even though I would say even if she was Makabel Kedushin first, maybe she just wanted to have a backup plan in case the shliach didn't get anybody. But really, she's relying on the shliach, and she's not mavatal the shliach. Emeloin have a kedushin. So I would say that her kedushin is not a good kedushin because she really, really wants to still rely on the shliach. So that's why we say that even a lady, if she's makabel kedushin on herself, she was mavatal the shliach. V'iyash meaning gabi dilof, which is said by her. Mishum the itza daika minsava. A lady is very careful who she wants to marry, so she's going to check it out. And therefore, when she was makabel kedushin first, she was mabatel her shliach. Aval iu, but the father, right, when he was makabel kedushin, since he's not living with the lady, so basically he was makabel kedushin, maybe as a backup plan, but really he's relying on the shliach. So he's not so careful. That's why he hired a shliach to do the work for him. Since it doesn't matter to him, and even if he was makabel kedushin, he didn't really mean to be makabel kedushin. He's just relying on the shliach tzricha. That's why we have to tell you in both cases, even the one hiring the shliach, if they're makabel kedushin by themselves, whether it's the father or the lady, they are automatically, by doing so, they will mavato the shliach. Nu Gemara, Itma, we learned. Kitcha avia, but let's say you have a girl, okay? Now, as soon as she turns, let's say 12 and a half, she becomes a bogeres if she has, hair, 2 hairs, a simonim. Right now, she's a real older girl, and the problem is like this: Kitcha avia badara. Her father was makabel kedushin, the kitcha atzma be'ir, and she was makabel kedushin at the same day. Now we turn around and examine her. Varei begeres. Right now, as we examine her, we see she was an adult. Now, if she's an adult, then the father had no right to be makabel kedushin. The father could only be makabel kedushin when she's a nara or a katana. But right now, it seemed that she fell out of his jurisdiction because I'm checking her now, and she's a begeres. The question was, maybe when the father was makabel kedushin, she was not yet a bogeres. Maybe she was a naira. Rav Amarei bogeres lefneini. We look at her; she's an adult right now, and therefore that's one. She was always an adult, and therefore the father had no right to be makabel kedushin. So only her kedushin is valid. Shmuel says kedushin. No, we're not sure. Maybe when the father was makabel kedushin, she was considered a naira or something like that, and because of that, she's mukudeshes. With besafik to her, to the one that she was makabel kedushin, and the one that the father was makabel kedushin. So the Gemara discusses like this: Amos, what day, what kind of girl are we talking about? She's 12 years old, not yet 12 and 6 months. It's very odd that a girl who just turned 12 should have the right simonim. So if she has the simonim, it'll only happen right now. And really, the father who was makabel kedushin early, he was makabel kedushin when she was still a nara. So it can't be that she was 12 and let's say 1 month old. If it's talking about she was 12 and 7 months old, or 8 months, or she was a 13-year-old. So certainly when a girl turns 12 and 12 and a half, 12 and when she's 13 years old, if she's already 13 years old, certainly Shmuel would assume that she was always considered an adult. Shmuel said, the questionable period between Naras and Bagras is only 6 months. So a girl turns 12, she's a Nara. When she turns 12 and 6 months, she automatically turns into a Baigeris, an adult. So what is basically, the Gemara is going to try to understand what is the machlekes between Rav Shmuel. So it's a fascinating case. The Kodesh Bahu Yomi b'Mashlim Shisha. The day that the 6 months is over, that's the day that she was Makabel Kedushin for herself and her father. So that day, there is no chazaka, because that day is the changeover day. And really, most girls will change over at 12 years old and 6 months to the day. So Rav says, Harei hi bagaris lefanenu. We look at her right now. Let's say at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on that day, she's a bagaris. We see here, she has the simonim of an adult girl. Now, the father was Makabel Kedushin in the morning of that day. So let's say if the father was Makabel Kedushin in the morning, will you say that the entire day she was an adult? So Rav says, Midahash to Bagaris. Now that 5 in the afternoon, we see she has 2 hairs under her armpit, so she must be a Bagaris now. She must have been in the morning. But Safra Nami Bagaris. In the morning, she was also a Bagaris. So if the father was Makabel Kedushin at 9 o'clock in the morning, he had no right to do so, because even at that time, should we consider her a Baigeris? Shmuel says, Hashtuhu the Isis Simonim. Wrong. Right now, she brought a Simonim. So therefore, Shmuel says, right now, she was a Baigeris, but perhaps 9 o'clock in the morning, she was still a Nara, and maybe the father had a right to be Makabel Kedushin. So Shmuel says, we're concerned that both her and her father's Kedushins are valid. Says the Gemara, Shmuel Maishnom mikvah. Why do we say that this case is different than a mikvah? According to Shmuel, you always say right now. There's something. If something changed, it happened right now. You don't say it happened before. But we find in the Mishnah Mikvah is the Tanya. We learned in the Mishnah. Mikvah shninda v'nimtzeh chasu. You measure a mikvah and you find that it's missing the shear. Kol taharos nasal gabel v'freya bein b'rishus yach bein b'rishus rabin tameas. Then you say, oh, it's been missing. Right now, it's less than 40 saw, then every taharis till the last checking is considered tameh, because you say just because you found it right now, it's missing the kashrus. So we assume that it was missing the kashrus back then. So same thing over here. If according to Shmuel, why don't we say if you find her at 5 o'clock in the afternoon as a bagaris, she must have been a bagaris at 9 o'clock in the morning. What's the difference by mikvah to the case of a bagaris? Answer to Gemara, Shana Hasam over there is different. I could say, you put the tame on his presumptive status, the ema loitavo. You have a chazaka that the person who wanted to use this mikvah was a tame person. So we're going to continue that status, presumptive status, that he's status quo, and he didn't change from being a tame to a tar. Says the Gemara, let us put the mikvah on its presumptive status, and it never lost anything. So the Gemara says that chazaka doesn't work. You can't say that because the mikvah is missing 40 saw right now. So said the Gemara, same thing. So why don't you say harei boigeris lefenecha? So therefore, she was a bagaris beforehand. Hashtuhu the bug. So the Gemara says, Hashtuhu the bagra. Why don't you say the same idea? Hashtuhu the Gemara. So we say, no, just the opposite. By bagaris, we say, right now she became a bagaris. So the Gemara asks back, Hasanami, Hashtuhu the chasa. Why don't you say back that right now it became missing? So in other words, the kasha is, by mikvah, you're saying you find it missing, you go backwards and say it was always missing till the last time you measured it. And by the begeris, the girl who's now an adult girl, we say, oh, right now she became an adult girl, but in the morning it's possible she was a nara. How come you don't go backwards and say if she's a begeris now, she must have been a begeris in the morning? Answers the Gemara, Hosam tarta l'reusa, hachachada l'reusa. Over there's two problems. There's a cheskas tame, and you say that the herei chasa lefenecha, so it's missing something. So therefore, you say right now that it became, that you say it was always in the back chaser. Hacha over here, chadel. You only have one problem. One problem is you don't know when she became a begaris. So there, in our case, you'll say right now she became a begaris because that day is a change day. So therefore, it's possible in the morning she was a nara, in the afternoon she changed over into a begaris. So therefore, Shmuel is chayish. Maybe that's what happened. And the father's kedushin, the father who accepted kedushin was the right one. Ushmuel ma'ishna b'chayiv. Same question. Why is Shmuel saying that this is different than chavius? The Tanya we learned in a brisa. A person had a barrel of wine. And this barrel of wine, he designated as wherever he's going to drink from his other barrels of wine, he's going to take off truma and say that the truma is in this barrel of wine. And every time he drinks from another barrel, he's going to say a little bit more should be truma, whichever. So that was the truma barrel. And slowly, but using all the tevel barrels, he's designating a one truma barrel. Now, the truma barrel will only work if it's wine. If it turns out that he's drinking wine and the truma barrel was vinegar, it's not going to work. So now let's say like this: he was checking out his barrel of wine that it was using all this time to designated that will be the truma barrel. And then after he investigated, he found out it was vinegar. So kol gimel yamim vaday became ve'elech sofek. The first 3 days, from the time that he checked it, let's do one shot. The first 3 days backwards, we assume that it was wine. It was vinegar. Sorry, first 3 days backwards, it was vinegar. Became ve'elach, but beyond 72 hours. Suffix, we have a suffix. Maybe it was wine 4 days ago or 5 days ago. And it turned, basically, we say it turned into vinegar 3 days before you checked it out. But beyond that, it may have been wine. So the Gemara asks, so you don't go all the way back and say it was vinegar forever. And we say only 3 days ago, 3 days ago, it was vinegar. But beyond that, it could have been wine. So the Gemara says, V'ramina chavis mikvah. And then the Gemara asked the question of chavius to mikvah. Why by mikvah you go back and say if for sure was chaser for a long time, and over here you say that by the wine maybe it was wine 5-6 days ago. It didn't turn into vinegar. Who's the author of chavius? Rab Shimon he. So the chavius mishnah is actually different than the mikvah. The gabi mikvah not misveikinami mishaveh. Even by mikvah, Rabbi Shimon will say it's not for sure that you go back and say everything is tamei. The Tanya we learned in a brisa koltar on this mikvah that you found that was missing, it didn't have the shear koltar shenasal gabel mafreya bein b'shus yachim bein b'shus rabin tameas. Every taharas going backwards is tamei. Rab Shimon Shimon says that you're right. B'shus Rabim, it's tahar, and B'shus Yachid, it's only if the mikvah was in B'shus Yachid, then you have a suffix. But the bottom line is, Rab Shimon holds that no, a mikvah that you found it's missing, Rab Shimon has a lenient opinion, and he says no, it right now became missing. Everything that you use the mikvah for remains tahar. But a Rabbanan, Tavla Mafreya. According to Rabbanan, we will say that when by the vinegar case, we're going to say that it forever was vinegar. So the question is, again Shmuel, why by the vinegar case we say that it forever was vinegar, and by the begaris case we say no, right now she became a begaris. And so it's a question against Shmuel. So the Gemara says, Shani Hasam, it's different. I could say, Hamid Tevel Achas Kosek. You put the Tevel on its presumptive status, and therefore no truma was taken from this tevel that you designated this just truma barrel for. But prior to that, what you want to use it for had a din of tevel. The Eimar, we're going to say, Loy Niskan, you didn't fix it. So the Gemara says, put the wine on its presumptive status, and we say that it didn't turn into vinegar up until maybe at the last moment it turned into vinegar. So the Gemara says that's not a good chazaka, but you see it's vinegar in front of you. So hachinami, so say over here, he begaris lefnenu. So also over here, we say she is a begaris in front of us, and therefore we don't go backwards. No, the Gemara says hashtu debaka. We say no. By over here, we say right now she became a begaris. So therefore, we should say over there hashtu de echmitz. Right now, it became chametz. It became vinegar. So a question is why? Again, back to the original question: why by the vinegar case do we say it was forever was vinegar, and by the begaris case we say right now she turned into an adult? Answers the Gemara, Hossam over the Atata Rayuse. You have two problems over there. What are the two problems? The two problems over there is that one, you have Tevel, and the Chazak's status is Tevel, and number two, it became right now, we say it became vinegar. So maybe it was vinegar throughout the entire time. Hacha over here, it's only one reyusa, which means right now she's a begaris. But it's very possible and that she was a Nara in the morning. So there's nothing pushing it to say, no, she was not a Nara in the morning. So because of that, therefore, Rabbi Shmuel says, we'll say right now she became a Begaris, and maybe the father who was Makabel Kedusha was the right, was an effective Kedusha. One more piece and then we'll stop. Name a Tanoi. Let's say it's a Machlekes Tanoim. So the Gemara says like this: Mi moitzi miyad mi. Mi moitzi miyad mi. Who moitzi miyadam beloy raya? Hein moitzi miyadam beloy raya. Divrei Yaakov. Nasa noime in baruhu olav lahavi raya shoyish chimara. Imshchimara aleim lahavi raya shabarihu. The case of the story is that a person wrote all his assets belong to somebody else. So remember, when you're on your deathbed, the halacha is that it would work. But let's say you become healthy. If you become healthy, then you can get it back. You can get it back. Because it's obvious the reason why you wrote somebody could keep all your assets is because you're on your deathbed and you think you're never going to survive. What happens, the cases like this, two guys, he gave his assets to somebody. But the giver says, I was on my deathbed when I gave it to you. And now that I got healthy, give it back to me. The other person says, no. You were healthy when you gave it to me. And therefore, there's no backsies. So Yaakov said, well, we believe him. And therefore, he could take it back, and he could take it back. Rab Nosson says, you look at where he is right now. If he's healthy, he has to prove that when he gave it gave the gift, he was a meshchimera. And if he's a shchimera now, then they have to prove that he's healthy. So basically, Rav, who says you look at what is, and that defines the whole situation, he holds like Rab Nosson. Ushmuel da Amak Rab Yaakov. Shmuel says, who has doubts, and you say, you don't say it that way. He probably went like Rabbi Yaakov. So the Gemara answers, Amalach Rav. Rav answers, and this will stop. Another Amr Afilik Rabbi Yaakov. I could hold like Rabbi Yaakov. Ad kan like Rabbi Yaakov Hosam the Ikalamei Haman Moman Al Cheskosoy. Aval Hocha mean Hamed Guf Al Cheskosoy. Over there, Rav could say I could hold like Rabbi Yaakov, because over there Rav Yaakov said, you could say you put the money on its chazaka, and really it always belonged to that person, to the person that's holding on to it, and therefore the other person has to prove that he was on his deathbed when he gave it. But over here, there's no chazaka over here, because she's a girl that's supposed to change on that day to become a begaris. Therefore, if I find her as a begaris, I automatically know she was a begaris back then, right? Ushmuel the Ama another Amir Kaviram Nasan Ad Kan La Kamar Nasan Hasnim Kuli Amir Cheskes Briam kind of. I could hold like Rab Nasan, but Rab Nasan only said is over there is because everybody's a healthy person. So man the komak ben nafshi mikazaka have a lerdus uraya aval hacha mi komak ganaf mikazaka kama. Over here, there's no presumptive status that she was a Nara. On the day that she's supposed to turn into a Begaris, it could happen at any time. Over there, most people are Cheskes Briam. And if a person is on his deathbed, he probably would have passed away. The fact that he got healthy, maybe it weakens the whole question. And therefore, perhaps he was gifting his items when he was really healthy and he wasn't on his deathbed. And therefore, Rab Nosson will say that the gift is is a gift. Okay, we'll continue with this tomorrow.